So I was very excited to do this because we've got a fantastic group of panelists from really a very different, sort of coming at the problem of how to, engage with and connect with millennials, how to produce content that they want to read, but also how to sell to them. And we've got a good, an excellent breadth of people from the traditional and the new, and so I think that will promise to be a fantastic panel. So what I'm going to do is really sort of briefly ask each of the panelists to respond to a question and introduce themselves, and maybe start with J.Stefano. So Justin is the co-founder of Refinery 29. Now, in the interests of full transparency, I should say that WPP, that we announced our investment in Refinery 29 3 days ago. I promise not to go easily on Justin as a result. So Justin, tell us a little bit about Refinery 29 and what you're really trying to do with your business.
So excuse me, this is Mike. Refinery 29 is a digital media site for millennial women. We started 10 years ago out of an apartment in Brooklyn with an initial focus on fashion and shopping. And over the past couple of years have expanded into a number of other categories, including health and wellness, home, living, and more recently, news, culture, and politics. Today in the United States, we reach 25 million uniques, 1 to 2 millennial women every month. And we have an incredibly engaged audience of super passionate women that come back daily for the content and for the resources and the information.
Okay, great. Next to Justin is Miguel Bekharam. Miguel is a former investment banker, but the president of Elite Daily. Elite Daily was bought by Daily Mail beginning of this year, or Daily Mail and General Trust the beginning of this year. Miguel, tell us a little bit about Elite Daily and what you're trying to do.
Sure. Elite Daily is a digital publisher fully focused on millennials. When we first started Elite Daily, we were really tired to see traditional publishers going into digital and not doing a good job, or seeing niche websites like TechCrunch or Bleacher Reporter not really covering everything. So we just wanted to create a platform that covers anything that a millennial person is interested in. And at the same time, we also just wanted to have a really engaging content, because what do millennials really care about? They want to see kind of content that speaks with them rather than at them. And today we reach over 75 million monthly uniques. And as you said, we were just acquired by Daily Mail, and we're really excited about that because they gave us the firepower to really expand to more topics such as LGBT, fashion, beauty, and beyond what we did before, which is humor, lifestyle, aspiration, entrepreneurship.
And do you and Refinery 20, are you competitors or?
I guess we're frenemies.
Yeah, we're definitely frenemies because, yes, the majority of our traffic is female as well. But at the same time, I always say you can go to Refinery 29 and look for something like do-it-yourself, fashion, beauty. I know you guys are expanding to other topics as well, but I think that's what Refinery 29 is known for, and they do really well. And what we're known for is really aspirational content, entrepreneurship content, and dating. So you come to our side if you want to engage with the content where maybe you're going through a breakup and you see a dating article on our site.
And how are you different from Mail Online? I mean, the Mail Online, for those people that don't know it, is I think the highest selling English language, or probably any language, sort of news site on the internet. What, 225 million viewers a week.
I mean, that's one of the beauties why Mail Online wanted to buy us, because together we reach 1 in 2 millennials in the US alone, and we have over 140 million uniques combined, but we only have a little less than 10% unduplicated on ComScore. So it's really 2 completely different audiences. When you go on Mail Online, you go on it because you want to see fresh, really good content on celebrity, on news, things like that. And you come to Elite Daily when you really want to see lifestyle content. And again, engaging content that is for the social era that you're really going to like, share, and comment on it and speak to your friends about.
Great. So A.Weber. Annette is the editor-in-chief of InStyle magazine. So InStyle has, I think you said 500,000 readers. We were discussing earlier whether you have a reader or an audience, 500,000 readers. The beauty of being, I think, profitable, which is maybe unlike the other 2 businesses, but maybe we'll come on to that in the future. And then what do you make of these businesses and what they're doing? How do you think about it as the editor of a traditional, if you want to call it, a so-called traditional magazine?
Well, yeah, I'm the editor since 7 years. I'm the editor-in-chief since 3 months. I'm also responsible for our website and all our social media channels. But our business model is still a very traditional one. We make over 20 million out of ad sales. We make over 9 million out of sold copies. And we make only around 500,000 euros through ad sales through the internet, which is only a fraction, you see, and this is the challenge.
So you're about 5% of your ad sale, less than 5% is digital today.
Yes, yes, yes.
But you're doing interestingly, so 20 million on 500, so you're doing 40 euro per reader on ad sales.
But the challenge,
statistic that they would love to have, right?
Yeah, but the challenge in our industry is quite is that the circulations are steadily decreasing, and the ad sales are also declining. And yeah, let's hope for the future.
It sounds like a tougher business, if you like. And R.Sigmund is our last panelist. So Rolf is the MD of L'Oreal in Germany, where he looks after the luxury business. He's been with L'Oreal 30 years in a variety of countries. So Rolf, as L'Oreal thinks about reaching its audience, how is that shifting, and how are you trying to shift your budgets digitally today?
Well, as you say, so I'm in charge of the luxury brands like Lancôme, YSL, Kiehl's, and some others in Germany. And definitely the digital transformation is a big challenge for us, but also a big opportunity. And definitely we have, as L'Oreal as a group, defined an agenda for the next 5 years. It's in 3 parts, saying we want to reach and we really want to sell through e-commerce 20% of our sales within 5 years. We want to be in direct contact with 50% of our consumers. And we want our brand really to be 100% loved brands where consumers really want to engage with. Now you come to the shift. Yes, we are today a traditional investor, a big advertiser in Germany, and hopefully a big customer of InStyle as well. Yes, we are shifting. So I can give you concrete figures for L'Oreal Luxury in Germany. So it was 14% of media last year, which went from traditional to digital. And this year it's already going to be 23%. Yep. So this gives you an idea on the speed.
That's a 70 to 80% increase in your digital spend.
Yes, and I think it's more also, before we were sending messages, either in a print ad or in a TV ad, and now it's really delivering a different context, and it puts not the product and the message in the center, but we have to put the consumer in the center and try to understand what does he want, what does he like, what makes him engage at the end, and probably the most important at the end, that he tells one morning to his friend, oh, I tried a product yesterday and I just like it and you should use it as well.
Okay, so J.Stefano, how are millennials engaging with your content? What are they looking at on their computers, on their tablets, maybe on their cell phones, and how's that changing?
They're looking at it everywhere, across all platforms. The majority of the usage today is coming in through mobile. That's primarily a result of the fact that the majority of them are discovering content through social feeds that they're consuming primarily on their mobile devices.
Is social a bigger driver of your audience than Google?
Yes, significantly.
So Facebook is bigger than Google today?
Yes, yeah, it's our single largest traffic referral source, and the majority
should the EU start to tackle Facebook or Google News?
So the majority of our consumers are, they're discovering their content through their social feeds, and they're clicking out through their mobile devices onto our site. But we're increasingly creating content specific for those social channels as well that doesn't push users back off of the social platform onto our site. So creating content natively inside of Facebook designed to keep users engaged on Facebook.
And can you make money from content that sits inside Facebook, or that's...
We are working on models to do that, and we've experimented.
Asking Facebook, in effect.
I don't know if there's anyone from Facebook in the crowd. But
anyone from Facebook here, you can do that.
But the model that we think is going to work in that setting is primarily branded content.
Right.
Because you can't embed ads inside of Facebook. today.
And Miguel, how is it?
For us, it's exactly the same. It's really mobile first. 80%.
And when you say mobile, is it text, pictures, video?
Everything. Our users consume from text to pictures to everything. It's 80% of our traffic is mobile, 5% is tablet, and the rest is desktop. So when we build new features, when we did the new redesign, we always think mobile first. And not app, but really mobile responsive. Because the reality is that only your really core users are going to download your app. So you want to be able, and as Justin just said, that the majority of the traffic is social. So Facebook for us is #1 as well. And then come all the other ones, Twitter, Pinterest, and all the other ones that come with it. But at the same time, when you think about these different platforms, you also have to create content specifically for them. So we have teams who create content thinking Facebook first. Then you have another team who creates content thinking Pinterest first. And you have all these new platforms that are coming up as well. So you always have to think like how your users want to engage with your content. You have to think about Snapchat, for example. You have to think about Periscope, then you have the competitor Meerkat. I mean, they're both very similar, but there's also different engagement with them. So what we always like to do is you have to pick your battles. So you try to learn the new platforms, you do a really quick stress test, you create content for them, and then you realize what works and what doesn't, and then you double down on it.
So Annette, maybe we could sort of swap a little bit from kind of where the audience is to how we produce the content for them. And this isn't necessarily an unfair question, but how many people do you that you employ could have the same conversation we just heard about how to create content for Snapchat, for Meerkat, for Periscope, for these platforms there are,
That's a very good question because as all publishers are, we are still in the early days. Of course, we are on Snapchat, we are on Facebook, but it's still the early days, and we still have a general interest magazine that is only able to speak to all our readers. But we try, of course, to collect data to address our audience, our readers, as good as possible. But yeah, we are still.
How many of your readers are millennials?
The average reader is 29 and a half.
The average reader, so it's not.
Yeah.
It's not that old.
No.
I think it's young. For me, sadly, that sounds. We were discussing earlier. Apparently, a millennial is someone born between 1980 and 2000. So that's the sort of technical definition. And Rolf, as you try and reach these people, is it who are your partners? Who are the partners that are helping you connect with this audience today? Is it the websites like this? Is it Facebook? Is it traditional media?
Well, we definitely have to go where the consumers are, and it's everybody. So definitely it's our traditional media, because I still think we have to address a broad audience. Also, when I look at our consumers, depending on the brands, they're going from 25 to the luxury part, let's say from 25 up to 70 and something. So we have to take this into consideration. But then it's definitely, it's social media. It's all the channels coming up. So the big thing is making the right choices, also taking risks and experimenting and finding out what is exactly the right target, looking at the target group you're facing.
Okay, so talking about how we produce content. So the editor of a magazine once said to me that he didn't know what the journalist did for the 30 days of the month the magazine didn't come out. And I thought that was a sort of, you can see when you're living in a monthly publication timescale, that's how people think, right? Newspapers think daily, magazines kind of tend to think monthly. What's the maybe Miguel, you could say, what's your editorial time? How often do you update your content?
So our editorial calendar doesn't really exist. Right. And it's really funny because when we first started Lead Daily, we always thought about what do we want to do for ourselves, because we are the audience. And one thing that we realized is we want to create content different than is out there. We want to have it engaging, but also write it different and distribute it different. So
how many I don't know, what do you call your staff that produce content? Journalists?
They're staff writers.
Writers?
It's really staff writers. We have a healthy.
But that's a very good question.
But writers take pictures and do video as well, or they just
no? So the way we actually do it, we want the writers just to focus on writing.
Right.
So we have a formatting team. So our writers just focus on writing, and you have writers who are not traditional journalists, who are not educated as writers, but they really just think how it comes natural to them. And some of our best writers are like that. It's like Lauren Martin, for example. She just writes really smart science articles or feel-good female-like articles just the way it comes natural to her. And some of her articles were shared over 1 million times, a single article alone. And it's really just giving the reader that emotional gift and just opening up what she's thinking, how she's thinking about a topic, and just being honest about it and writing it in a narrative way. Hey, this is what I think about X, Y, Z, and the people really engage with that.
What's the best story on Elite Daily today? What's the top story today?
I mean, today, I couldn't really say, to be honest, what it is today right now.
Yeah.
But lately, we've had some really good articles about relationship advice. We've had some really good life hack articles, because that's what millennials really care about. What they want to read is articles that they can relate to. And are you going through a hard breakup? Are you thinking about changing your job? Do you want to read an aspirational article? It's like these kind of things that are really going to get them to engage with it, not just read it, but also share it and like it with their friends.
Yeah. You just in terms of talent, 'cause one of the things that came up was, how, the likes of Elite Daily, Refinery 29, Vice are kind of destinations for talent. And then I think, Miguel, you said one of your people has just moved over to L. I mean, maybe, Annette, you can talk about, because I think that traditional media still have stature, right? They still are places where people want to go. They know they get training. There's a value in that. As we
do
see
train
in
our
our
writers.
business, we see the trade going both ways, right? How do you compete for talent?
Well, I think in Germany still it's a chance to work for German InStyle. We get a lot of applicants. We have a lot of interns.
How many applicants do you get then a year?
A lot.
Thousands, tens of.
Not thousands, but a lot. I mean, they have to have certain standards, of course, but. Yeah, I mean, the competition is out, and we lose more and more young, talented people to even to e-commerce sites. And this is one of the biggest challenges for the future, to attract and to speak, to young talent.
Okay, and Justin, where do you compete for your talent?
We compete with all forms of media. Actually, Our editorial strategy is a little different from Elite Dailies in the sense that we do have an editorial roadmap that exists that our editors work on. It's constantly evolving, but it goes months out because we're producing features that take months of work to create. And so to do that, we've brought in people from Glamour, from Condé Nast, from the Hearst publications. We just brought on a head of video programming from Scripps. So our team it's a mix. It's a blend of a lot of what these guys are doing at Elite Daily with the just constant real-time content creation based on what's trending and what writers want to feel passionately about at any given moment. And then it's also features and long form that takes a lot of production planning and strategy.
And
so our talent is pretty broad and diverse.
I would just want to say one thing. I think one thing that he brought up that is really important is passion. When he said you want the writers to be passionate about it, that's what we want to do as well. When you think about millennials, what are we really terrible at? When you tell us what to do. So bring them in, tell them what to write about, and really feel them that they own it. And when they're passionate about it, the output's going to be much better. I think that's important what you said.
Yeah.
So Justin, one of the things you're doing is Elite Daily is a kind of page view ad sales model, right? But your model, Justin, is a bit, let's say, broader. You're selling content.
I would disagree with that.
Wow.
Well, our model. There's certainly is an advertising component to it, but a large portion, 87% of our revenue, is driven by native advertising and branded content, and much of that. That model is us being able. It's driven by us being able to actually work with brand partners to develop content with and for them. So content production is a really important part of our model. And when we think about the way that our business is evolving, we're not just a media sales organization. We're also thinking about ourselves as a real content provider, which is why it is so important that we're making big investments in rich, expensive content.
And is there a difference in your mind between native advertising and branded content, or is that the same thing?
The difference is it's interesting because people use the two use those two terms often interchangeably, but it is different because branded content is something that can exist anywhere on the web. And native advertising is something that is really designed with a specific platform in mind that blends into it. So an example of that would be this past year, we did a big program with Cartier where we produced all of the creative assets for Cartier. And part of that was working with our editorial organization and with our merchandising group to pull in Cartier products and style our editors with, in incredible Cartier jewelry. And that was natively integrated into our site in the form of ad units that we built, as well as content that we developed in partnership with them. So it was really designed specifically for our platform. So that's an example of native advertising. Now, if you took some of that content out of context and you pushed it out through Facebook, right, or you pushed it out, if we did a partnership with Elite Daily, right, and we did a trade and they took the Cartier content and they put it on Elite Daily, suddenly that becomes branded content when it goes out of context.
And how does your audience know what's sort of paid for and what's not paid for?
Yeah, it's all disclosed. So anything that is branded content, native advertising,
like branded content,
sponsored by, brought to you by, it'll be clearly labeled, disclosed.
I think that's the challenge in all of this is like, you've got to be transparent with the consumer, presumably particularly millennials, about what exactly is going on.
Yeah,
right?
especially with millennials because they're highly tuned into this kind of stuff, and if they even just sniff at the fact that you might be trying to pull one over or trick them into something, they just can't stand it. And they'll be turned off to your brand, and they'll also be turned off to the advertiser that you're working with. So it's really important to have and maintain that trust.
So Rolf, maybe I'll ask you about sort of the role of content and advertising. I think, this is a sector where advertising and content has never really been, they've always lived quite happily together, right? It's not like people got a copy of InStyle and tore out all the ads and said, well, that's now a much better publication, right? People would buy magazines for the advertising as much, maybe not as much, but almost as much as the content. How are you thinking about content today, and what content is L'Oreal producing or asking others to produce?
No, as I said before, we were sending messages and the product was in the center of the interest. And now we have to put the consumer in the center of the interest. So when it comes to creating products, creating brands, we have to integrate the consumer, what he likes, what he might be ready to engage with very early, at a very early stage. And there, the agencies do not play the same role again. I think it's more us to produce that content. But also I'm turning myself to magazines. I think we have to find a way to collaborate in a different way and be very transparent with it. But I think we have great brands. InStyle for instance, is a great brand. And I think we can put this together and find ways in the digital world to really produce information and produce content which is more engaging than it used to be.
But in the print business, as an editor-in-chief, you are still obliged to maintain neutrality by law. This is the press law, and therefore I can't promote any given product. On the web is something else, but in print...
I think here in the US, right, it's been pretty clear. I mean, the great thing about American regulations, they make things very clear. The FTC have said, you can't mislead people.
Yeah.
Right? This is a pretty straightforward principle. It's either an advert or not an advert. It's either content or not a content. Though I'm yet to read a bad hotel review in a travel magazine, but they do at least disclose I mean, you never read a bad review of a hotel and travel magazine. They didn't say, I went to this hotel, it was terrible, and by the way, they paid for me to fly there. So not all editorial is that independent, right? Yes. Restaurant critics are different, right? But hotel critics are a bit like that.
But let's take a makeup product. I think consumers or young girls, they want to know today, how can I use it? How can I play with it? Are there tutorials, different ways, images? And I think this we have to work on.
Yeah.
It's nothing about being partial on something. I think it's a new era we have to look into.
Can I ask about YouTube? We haven't really talked about YouTube yet. If I think about, what's the major growth area? What do WPP's clients, where do they want to spend money? It's online video is like the #1 priority. And YouTube is the dominant platform. and there's a tremendous amount of content being produced by, you know, individuals. I mean, in the UK, these people are superstars. You know, Tanya Burr, you know, Zuela. It turned out she didn't necessarily write the book herself, but the book that she came out under her name was like the best-selling, I think the fastest-selling book in the last 5 years. So these people have become celebrities, but they're producing their own content. Does anyone have a point of view on how you do that? Do you worry about that as a competitor?
Yeah, I mean, at Elite Daily, video is a very big part. I mean, for example, we're having our new fronts tomorrow. So our new front tomorrow is obviously all just about video on Elite Daily and Daily Mail. It's a very big part of our strategy.
And how many views would your video get?
So organically, it depends. I mean, for example, one video that we just did 2 weeks ago got 7.5 million views.
Yeah.
Another one that we did got 2.5 million views. We actually did a branded video with T-Mobile that got over 400,000 views.
Yeah.
That's all organic views. So that's why I'm saying, for us, branded video is a very big piece of our model as well, because the brands trust us as being the millennial experts. We have so many brands that come to us and they tell us, you know, we're dying to reach millennials, but we have no idea how to. And then it's really from the basics, we have to explain to them what millennials actually are. Because when you think of millennials, it's individualism. A 20-year-old millennial is not going to be the same as a 34-year-old millennial. So you really have to re-educate the brands and explain to them how to speak with them rather than at them. And video is a huge piece of that. It's just, you just see like video going through the roof. And we don't believe in doing pre-rolls, so we put all our videos on YouTube, because same as editorial, we believe that if we produce an amazing product, brands will come by itself and they will want to be part of it.
And how many views would your video get on YouTube?
That's what I mean, 7.5.
Again, 7.5 million.
We embed everything natively on our site, but it's always the YouTube player.
But what's interesting is, you know, Zoella will get 5 million views. It's like one person producing the stuff on her own without any of your infrastructure or any of your costs or anything else.
Yeah, I think media companies like ours need to, you know, have an infrastructure to work with those creators. You know, one of the advantages that we have, right, is that we have really robust account management, sales and business operations that can take a lot of what's happening inside of YouTube, which is still very, it's like the Wild West. It's still very chaotic, and you can organize it into something that actually works for a brand partner. And I think that it's really important that I mean, not just our organizations, but all media organizations learn how to work inside of that ecosystem and partner with it versus thinking about it as competitive.
Do you see YouTube as a source of talent for you?
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a series, we have an original series on Elite Daily that is purely made for YouTube with YouTube stars.
Yeah. So can we talk a bit about e-commerce? It strikes me that, you know, particularly magazines were like the original passion businesses, right? You had travel, cooking, fashion, beauty, like categories that people were really passionate about that have very quickly switched to being very e-commerce led. And yet, you know, if I think of the UK where Net-a-Porter came from, you know, Natalie that started Net-a-Porter worked at Vogue, and her idea was to create, you know, a shoppable Vogue. That was kind of the idea. And I think she started in 1999 or 2000, like literally in her bedroom. And a lot of people said, well, no one would ever buy clothes online. So I think we've got past that. And now, you know, this year Condé Nast is launching style.com. So what is, maybe what is the e-commerce opportunity for publishers? You know, particularly as, you know, it comes back to the content idea. How are you going to take advantage of the e-commerce opportunity?
Yes, indeed, there is an e-commerce.
What do you think of? I mean, and by the way, Net-a-Porter have launched a print magazine, so the world is going completely backwards, right?
They already launched it.
Yeah.
Lucy Yeoman, she's the editor-in-chief, a very good editor, by the way. The magazine is done exquisitely. Personally, I think I'm missing a national tonality because it's produced for the whole world. And Natalie, she's from Britain, and maybe they should focus more on Europe, but this is my opinion. No, we are talking about the possibilities of e-commerce. Yes, that's a big possibility for us, a third stream of revenue for the magazines. But still, our expertise lies in producing content and not on commerce or on trade. So we have to learn fast.
I mean, it's easier, isn't it, it's easier for an e-commerce business to produce content a content business to do e-commerce,
Yes.
right? What about just
I mean,
doing in the
they're
e-commerce area?
such different businesses. Being a retailer is so different than being a media company, a content creator. And you know, over the past couple of years, there's been, and we have had a lot of experience in this because we've experimented with different commerce models over the years. And fundamentally, you just have two very different KPIs for those two different types of platforms. In a media organization, you want someone to read more content, get more and more distracted, go down more rabbit holes, and view videos and engage. In e-commerce, you want to get someone to buy something as quickly as possible. The fewer the clicks, the better. It's a very different experience that you're designing for. And then the expertise that goes into actually making an e-commerce company successful is, and you have brands, I mean, Kevin Ryan was up here before we were, and you have incredible companies that are being run by these, you know, the best in the business that are focusing on nothing but e-commerce and selling products. And so for media companies to try and achieve that, plus also grow and evolve into this new media world at the same time is very challenging.
Miguel, are you doing e-commerce work?
No, I have to admit, we haven't really spent very much time looking at it. We really focused on becoming the best storytellers we can be. And then the second aspect of that was becoming the best storytellers we can be for brands and work with them effectively. But if you look at our traffic now that it's mainly female and we have massive numbers, it's definitely something interesting for us to look at. And I think it's an opportunity. We should certainly look at it.
I mean, if you look at the Mail Online, they think they have quite a big program where, you know, they take a picture, they show you what someone's wearing, and then there's a link to a site that you can buy the same clothing.
The
right?
Mail Online, for
Doing
example,
that.
they do have a program. It's called Fashion Finders.
Yeah.
And it's doing very well for them. And it's mainly in the UK as well, yeah.
Yeah. And Rolf, you said your aspiration is to get e-commerce sales to what? To 20%?
20% in 5 years. So if we look at the market today, it's probably about, look at Germany, about 6%. And we make the differentiation between e-commerce sales done by our traditional e-retailers or retailers, they're having their own shops, being Sephora in the USA or France, being Macy's in the US, or being Douglas in Germany, or actually our own e-shops. And I consider this as absolutely strategic because it's for us a fantastic chance to get into direct contact with the end consumer.
Yeah.
And so we're putting a lot of effort in it. We are learning, as you said, it's a completely different business. We don't know. I think we're paying quite some learning money, but it's going onwards.
So the last area to touch on, and then Steffi, do you want people to ask questions, or? If people have questions, think about a question. We'll ask the last question on programmatic. We've got a couple of minutes left for questions. So programmatic media. So in the old days, you know, if I wanted to sell cars, I went to the automotive section. If I wanted to sell fashion, I went to InStyle magazine. Today, right, it's all changed. It's all about what we know about a consumer, what we know about a cookie, and then we can deliver any ad. How does that change? How does that change what you're all doing, and what's your data strategy, if you like? Maybe start with Rolf and go along.
Well, our strategy on that, I think we will go more and more also in direct targeting and looking into CRM, where we're still pretty small, but I think that's going to be a key strategy and a key part of our efforts, because that's the only way that we really can get into contact and I really can get a maximum of engagement.
So all marketing is now CRM? Basically.
No, definitely not.
No?
I think it really depends on the brands. The more brand is a niche brand, the more CRM will play an important role. When we talk about a broader brand, I think we're looking into traditional media, being print or being TV, but it's just a different quality level when we talk about CRM, and then the possible linkage to the e-commerce and the e-shop.
Annette, what is InStyle's data strategy?
Well, the data strategy, as I put it, it's in the very beginning. But interestingly, whenever we use data in the past to create new magazines, it was a complete failure. I think nothing compares to the creativity to a good editor.
Good.
Sometimes, you know, the customer or the reader does not want what he wants in the future. He does not see what his dreams, where his dreams may go. So, but yes, we have to collect more data.
Miguel, what is Elite Daily? How much of your sales are direct and how much is programmatic? Do you embrace Xaxis?
Sure, yeah. So since we're still a pretty young publisher, and we only really started doing direct last year, direct is only for about 40 to 50% right now. But if I think about it, that only a year ago it was at 10%, I think it's a really nice growth.
So a year ago, 90% of your revenue was programmatic.
Yeah, a year ago, 1.5 years ago was about 90%, yeah.
So so everyone tells us that programmatic is growing. For you, it's the reverse.
So our programmatic is still growing, but our direct is just massively growing because we really decided to double down on native and just being the storytellers for the brands.
And the CPMs are higher in direct than programmatic.
Yes, absolutely. Because the problem with us is for programmatic is that the millennials are very sophisticated readers when it comes to digital. 40% of millennials have ad blockers. And even less of those have even more sophisticated ad blockers. So it's very tough.
Ad blockers?
Yeah.
Terrible.
So it's very tough. And instead of trying to game the system and try to go against it, we just decided, you know what? We're the audience ourselves. We are our audience. Do we like IAB units? Do we click on it? No, we don't. So rather than fighting an uphill battle, why don't we double down and focus on something we're really proud about, like create the best native product we can do?
Okay, Justin.
We are 100% direct.
100%,
yeah,
so zero programmatic.
We don't have a single programmatic ad on our site.
Good. All right, I'm over time. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, my panelists. Thank you.
Thank you.